All right. All right, ready, Michelle? Okay, so I'll gavel us into session here. All right, good evening and welcome to the July 20th, 2020 meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Stephen Spur and I'm the chairman of the Summit Zoning Board. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 4:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to a newspaper of record and has been posted in City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision. Decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. This meeting is being conducted virtually via video conferencing in lieu of meeting in council chambers at Summit City Hall, Summit, New Jersey. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube page. Members of the public can view the meeting by following the link provided on the agenda. Dennis Galvin normally is the zoning board's attorney, but this evening we have Herschel Rose representing him. Thank you, Herschel, for joining. He will advise the board members on matters of law and is the key interface with an applicant's attorney. In this case, Mr. Rose does not vote on the applications. Chris Nicola, who is with us, is a city employee and is the zoning board secretary. Mr. Nicola works with the applicants on getting their applications together, planning our agendas, and keeping our meeting minutes. Mr. Nicola also does not vote on the applications. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings tonight, but a maximum of 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. Some applications require 5 affirmative votes to be approved. You'll be told which majority will be required before we begin our deliberations. Mr. Nicola, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Chairman Spur?
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Newell?
Here.
Mr. Yuko?
Here.
Mr. Laderi?
Here.
Mr. Steiner?
Here.
Mr. Mullen is excused. Ms. Schwartzstein?
Here.
Ms. Hensel is excused. Mr. Millay?
Here.
And Mr. Loikitz is excused. And for the record, Mr. Rose is here in place of Mr. Galvin for tonight. You have a quorum. You can proceed.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. We generally hear the cases in the order they are listed on the agenda. We try to have each hearing last no more than 30 minutes, but we do understand that some cases are too complex to be heard within that time frame. Each hearing begins with an applicant or their attorney giving an overview of the application and the variances that are required. We then hear from any expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the application and why the variances are needed. The board members may ask questions of the applicant, their attorney, and the expert witnesses. Once the board members and the board professionals are done with their questioning, the public will have an opportunity to ask questions. This is not the time to tell us what you think about this case. That opportunity comes at the end of the hearing. Before you ask your questions, we need to know who you are and where you live. It is important that our court reporter is able to keep a clear and accurate public record. Please state your name before speaking or asking a question. And please do not talk over each other. This is even more important under the current circumstances. After all the witnesses have been heard, members of the audience have their second opportunity to speak. And at that time, you may express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. Then the public hearing is closed and we go into executive session where the board members discuss the case and vote. You will be able to listen to our executive session, but you will normally not be able to participate in our discussion. Most applications are heard and decided in the same evening. If a case requires additional information or testimony that cannot be presented tonight, we will carry your case to another date and it will not be decided tonight. Krista Anderson, the city zoning officer, has asked that I remind all applicants that they must read carefully the resolution that documents the zoning board's decision, and to pay particular attention to the conditions contained in the resolution. For example, if a landscaping plan is required, you must obtain one and submit it to John Linson, the city's forester. If a grading plan is required, you must have one prepared by a civil engineer and submit 3 copies along with the application fee to the city's engineering division. Failure to satisfy all conditions in a resolution will result in a delay in approving your application, as it will cause extra work for city zoning staff. The resolutions documenting the board's decision will normally be available 1 month after we decide the case. When I call your name, please tell me how many witnesses you have and whether you think you complete your case in 30 minutes. So this evening, we've actually, of the 3 cases on the agenda, 2 are expected to be carried. So just quickly, and what we'll do, Mr. and Mrs. Lind, is We're going to move to carry those two cases, and then we'll proceed to yours. But just to set some expectations, I think I see where's Christian and Natalie Lind? Oh, hello. Do you have an attorney with you this evening or any expert witnesses? I think we heard one.
We just have our survey/engineer, Rick Palmer.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So we're just going to quickly address the other two cases, and then we'll move on to yours. Thank you. All right. With that, so we have first 208 Kent Place Boulevard, Jennifer and Robert Walker. Is there anyone here for that case this evening?
I don't believe so. They've
Okay.
they had a defective notice, and they are therefore renoticing for August 3rd.
Okay. And Chris, do we need them to extend the time that we were allowed to act, or did you receive that in writing?
Since their notice was never effectively, yeah,
Okay.
more or less, they just renotice. Since they did publish and everything, I would recommend carrying them formally to the next date. But unless Herschel has a differing opinion.
I think carrying them formally to the next date will be fine, since it was an error in their notice and they did publish.
Thank you,
Okay.
Herschel.
What is the date you're recommending to be
That's
carried to?
August 3rd is the next date.
With the
So-
understanding that there's going to be some, that the child care center will be heard as well, and they fully understand, and that's the date they wanted to move to. So
Okay. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to move this case then to the 3rd of August, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
In a second. So moved by Mr. Steiner. I heard second by Ms. Newell. Sorry.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Nope. All right. All right. Thank you. Then the second case to be carried. This is Kyle and Sarah Binnington, 19 Evergreen Road. I mean, in this case, Chris, they'll be carried to September 9th. Is that correct?
Yeah, the note on the agenda, I got the date wrong. I put the 8th. It's actually the 9th for that Wednesday. So we would need a motion to carry them as well. I believe they're planning to revise some plans.
Okay. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to carry this case to September 9th, 2020.
So move, Michael Tordieri.
Thank you, Michael. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Second, Catherine Schwartzstein. All right. Thank you,
All
Catherine.
right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Great.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. Now to the stars of the show here this evening, the Linds. Thank you, Christian and Natalie. So because you don't have an attorney, we'll ask you just to start us off with the case, just provide a bit of a description of what you're asking for before we transition to the expert that you have with you today.
Perfect. Well, thank you for listening to us tonight. I am Christian Lind. This is my wife, Natalie. And we've been here in Summit, 41 Oakley Avenue for next month, I think will be 5 years.
Sorry, 1 second, Mr. Lind. Chris, do we need to swear them in? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Sorry. Joe's smiling there. Herschel, would you mind
Oh,
swearing
good.
the Linds in?
Swear
Sorry,
them
we're
in.
too excited to begin.
All right, Mr. Lin, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matters, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you state your name and just spell your last name for the record?
It's Christian Lind, and my last name is spelled L-I-N-D.
Okay, thank you. Will Natalie be speaking today as well?
Possibly.
Well, I'll swear you in too. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, both. Now you may proceed.
So coming up on 5 years, and I think, we love our house. I think, after having 5 years to really think about, as our kids get older, we have 3 children, 10, 8, and 4. And, the possibility of possibly growing that even more. I think we've had some time to digest what we absolutely love about the house and just the little changes that we would like to make. I think in terms of what we're looking to do, the main things would be, just moving the garage to the front of the house. I think the current layout, we both have Suburbans. So I think we have 2 inches on each side of the mirror as we drive, to get to the back of the house. So very tight quarters, to say the least. And then on top of that, I feel like there's so much pavement in the backyard that we thought if we could move it to the front of the house, it would just create much less pavement. And then I think really open up our backyard and make that, much larger, which I think, would be great for the kids. In terms of the room above the garage, there's one little tiny closet, really, really small. So obviously as our kids get older, more things to collect, more clothes. So we thought since we had planned to extend our garage because we both have Suburbans, just because I think this house was built in the 1930s. There's a post right in the middle of the garage. I don't even know if you could fit a Honda Civic in there. I think that would probably be tight. So we thought if we could just push back our garage a little bit. And then while doing that, we thought we could just go up and create a larger closet for that bedroom above the garage. And then I think lastly was just putting a bedroom above our flat roof kitchen. The existing bedroom that you would have to get through to get to that new bedroom, I think is less than 10 by 10. Again, a super small closet. And I think, looking at my 4-year-old that's in there now with the armoire in there and a full-size bed, I think, that would be tough living quarters. So having the flat roof, we thought it made sense because I think the prior owners had told us that they had thought about that and had put the structuring in place to do that, which turned out to be the case. So we thought that would just open up, just a normal sized bedroom. And then also our laundry is in our kitchen. And we would love to get that straight above, literally just moving straight above gets the laundry to the little bedroom, which would be the corridor to the new bedroom above our kitchen. And then lastly, just creating more storage space. That's the one thing our house absolutely lacks. We have a little storage room in our basement, but we would really like to get a nice storage room in our attic. We have so much stuff, as you guys can probably imagine, as a family, whether it be clothes. I'm really into fishing and hunting. I have more stuff. My wife probably would love to burn it tomorrow. But we just have lots of stuff. And then on top of that, just a small little bathroom up there, we thought made sense. My wife's from Indiana. She always has family visiting. So I think, on top of that, possibly growing our family. And then, I think about the people I work with that are, roughly 10 years older than me and what they're going through as their parents age and having to take care of them. We thought, that, for all those reasons, it kind of made sense to possibly have that up there just as another outlet, when there's more people in the house. So maybe I'll stop there. I think that covers most of it.
Thank you. No, thank you for the very thorough walkthrough. And Mrs. Lynn, you don't have to comment on throwing away all this hunting and fishing gear. You can leave that alone.
Wonderful.
Before we jump to the expert, perhaps the board or our board professional, Mr. Dow, if you have any questions for the applicants, knowing that we're going to hear from an expert next. Any questions for the applicant? All right. Thanks, Mike.
Question.
Oh, yep.
What happened?
Yep, you're good. Go ahead, Michael.
I just reading that the right side of the house, which is shown on the engineering plans, is not shown on a property survey. Could we get that looked at or corrected, or a condition made to?
Yeah, so actually that's just small stone, and maybe my engineer would like to comment on that. That's not a impervious. Rick, is that something?
Well, we'll hear from him. Sorry, Rick. We're going to hear from you next. Yeah, we're just.
I'm sorry.
Just asking questions of you.
All that is small. What do they call it? River stone. That basically extends the entire length of the house, and it goes to our perimeter, which is lined with trees. So it's not a concrete pad at all. It's just free moving stone.
Sure. It just says it's not shown on your survey. That would be the only thing I'm mentioning about. That's what Krista has here, Krista Anderson. So I'm not sure if it does or if it doesn't. I'm just reading off.
I don't know. I think it does. Let's see if we can get this right here. Do you see this right here? So I think it is identified. This is our survey. I don't know if that helps, but.
Yeah, Stephen, I don't know why they would have that in the notes, though. That's why I was looking at.
Yeah, I think what I think Michael's referencing, Mr. Lind, is this is within Krista Anderson's memo with regard to the proposed lot coverage. The application appears to comply However, the applicant should be prepared to provide details on the area on the right side of the house, which is shown on the engineering plans, but not shown on the property survey. So, Michael, not to speak for you, but did you receive enough information there about what is on the right side of the home, which I believe Mr. Lind, you're testifying it's river stone, it's loose stone, pretty much. Is there more detail that you're seeking?
Oh, no, yeah, I'm sorry, you were speaking to me, Stephen, I
Yeah,
apologize.
sorry, Michael. Yeah, is there more information? Would you like to see that
No,
reflect? Asking to
if
see it
it
reflected
is
on the survey?
shown, if it is shown, that's great. I was just picking up on the memo from Krista.
Okay. Okay, and we can hear some further testimony from the engineer just to reaffirm it and from a professional's mouth. But thank you, Mr. Lynn, for that explanation.
Yes.
Any other questions from board members? Joe?
Yeah, may I? If I'm not mistaken, what you're planning to do here is to have a front-facing garage rather than a rear-facing garage. You would be the only house in the neighborhood, with the exception of the corner property that is next to you, that has and they really have a back garage on it because they have two fronts in that situation. What is the reason for deviating from zoning, which requires rear garages?
Yeah, I honestly, I think it just comes down to functionality. If you saw how tight our driveway is against our neighbor's fence, I'm
Yes,
surprised.
I've been on your property today, so.
All right. So, but it's really, really tight, and we both have big Suburbans. So, and then, we just thought coming into the front would be easier, and we would be able to get rid of all of that pavement in the back and the side yard and actually turn that into lawn.
All right. How do you feel? I don't know if you read and I don't know if this is them or if this is their, I'm not sure who we have, an engineer or whatever, but our forester has indicated that you'll be deleting 2 trees and is recommending that trees be replaced. Do you have any comments on that? Are you willing to do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's something I think we would have done without the board or, without the committee telling us.
So Joe, sorry to be clear, are you asking, I think Mr. Linson called for replacement of the tree in the right of way. Are you
And
asking for replacement of both trees?
I think they're both going to be in the right of way by the time they get done. Anyway, yes, I'm looking for both to be replaced.
Yeah, I think we can make that a condition of approval.
So, yep. So if you sorry if you didn't hear what Mr. Yuko said, is we'd make it the condition of approval for those 2 trees to be replaced. I'm in consultation with Mr. Linson, the city forester.
And I probably will have additional questions about the front facing garage after we hear from the expert.
Okay. Any other questions from board members?
I have a question.
Sorry, just to wrap, Joe. Joe, did you have another question?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, Catherine, please. Yep.
Besides making it a front-facing garage, what other changes will you notice from the front of the house?
So we plan to, there's a very little dormer up there. We plan to extend that. I think it's a foot and a half in each direction. So relatively minor, I think, and still within the span that you need to be, what do they call that? The setback, I think. So we just thought it would look nicer seeing with the garage there to have a slightly bigger structure over it. And then the only other change to the front of the house would be a little like awning over our porch. And not even something, I think, with posts, something that's small enough that can actually hang on the facade of the house.
But the whole rear addition, will that be noticeable from the street or no?
You shouldn't see any of it, I think, because the only portion I would think you would be able to see is the closet that's being built above the pushback of the garage. But because of that setback, that closet does not go the full width of the garage. So I think even at an angle, you wouldn't be able to see that when you turn around the corner.
Thanks.
All right, excellent. And we'll take you guys out of the limelight for a moment here. And if your expert would like to step forth, I don't see any members of the public, just for the record, though. Is there any members of the public here in attendance for this application? I don't see any. Great. All right, so let's move to the expert. If you just, again, Herschel, you swear in
Yeah.
the expert for the application would be great.
Okay. Could you please state your name?
Yes, hello everybody, good evening. My name is Richard Volmar. Last name is spelled V as in Victor, Ollmar. I am the...
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you state your professional qualifications and one of the last three boards you appeared in front of in New Jersey?
Yes, certainly. Okay, I am a licensed professional engineer. I hold a Bachelor of Civil Engineering. I've been licensed in the state of New Jersey since 1996. So I've been practicing all things civil engineering for the last 24 years. I also have a master's degree in environmental engineering as well. I have functioned as the city engineer for several municipalities in Warren County. And presently, I do double duty with quote unquote my real job and my side business, which is Blue Line, Stone Home, and Engineering.
We'll accept your qualifications. Thank you. So if you'd like to start with just any testimony you'd like to precede before we jump into questions from our board engineer as well as members of the board themselves.
Okay. Okay, so well, you've heard from Mr. Lind. He explained, I guess, the architectural aspects of the project. I was brought on board to essentially do the engineering for this relocation of the driveway into the front, which involved primarily, a new profile and a grading plan to make sure everything tied in correctly. In the process of so doing, we met a couple times and we kind of went around and around on how much patio they wanted to remove. As he testified, they're looking to green up the space in the back. And I think they've done a remarkable job in pulling up a lot of asphalt. Still have some pavers, but the majority of it is being replaced from impervious material to pervious lawn. And just to kind of circle back on that issue with the right, I perhaps should have labeled that. It kind of looks like cobblestones in plan. It's essentially small gravel. I presume it's there because that side of the house, it's probably hard to grow grass. And it's, I know the AC, air conditioning pads are there as well. So they just, they graveled it. So again, not pervious or not impervious material. And also, I want to jump back. It's just a point of clarification regarding the trees. The plan already shows that the trees are to be removed and replaced with equal caliber, and the one in the right of way would be where directed by the city or the engineer. The one issue I did see the comment about the width of the driveway. So my marching orders were 20 feet. And the reason so being is kind of twofold. They do have a big family. They do have a big vehicle. I know what that's like. So I know I'm not quite totally sure what the ordinance is for the width of a parking space, but typically it's 9 foot minimum. In some municipalities it's 10. So 2 times 10 would be 20. That's kind of how we got there. So it's really, I can see as those kids start to get older, there's going to be a couple cars utilizing that space. So that's why we went with the additional 2 feet. And then touching on that as well, as you're aware, the asphalt driveway used to go right to the property line. So we are essentially making it better. We're now approximately 7 feet off the property line with the driveway. So we consider that an improvement.
While we're there, you may want to know that it's 15 feet is the maximum permitted.
Is that for the apron or for the driveway as well?
That's for the proposed apron width of 20, whereas 15 is the maximum permitted.
And what about the driveway width itself? Is that 18?
Curb cut is 20, and then 18 is permitted.
Right, for the apron, but I'm talking about on the property itself. Is it what's the width of the driveway? I think the comment mentioned 18, if I'm not mistaken.
The drop curb width of 20 feet, whereas 18 feet is the maximum permitted. Then you need a variance for that, and you need a variance for the proposed apron of 20 feet, whereas 15 feet is the maximum.
Okay, right, okay.
Thank you, Joe. And maybe before we go to additional board questions, Chris, were there any other issues that you want to flag? I saw stormwater management was also raised as part of the engineer's letter.
Right, the stormwater management, I guess they are reducing impervious coverage. The question regarding it being a concrete patio, I guess, has been resolved because it's really shown in an area where they're trying to prevent erosion, and it allows to have some infiltration. So as far as that comment, I think we can probably eliminate that because, again, they're decreasing the impervious coverage. And then they've addressed the trees and pretty much everything else on our comments has been addressed.
Okay. So let's go. How about additional questions from the board? Joe, you have anything further, or any other members of the board? Questions for the engineer?
Chris, you're removing your request for a dry well?
Well, the only question would be whether or not they redirecting that the pipe that goes out to the street to a dry well. Normally with stormwater management, if they're not increasing the impervious coverage, we don't require anything. It would be up to the board if they wanted to recommend to have the dry well put in to eliminate that pipe going out to the street.
And your recommendation is?
Well, the city does not like having any additional stormwater going from the properties, and they're not in favor of having pipes, the downspouts going out to the street. So we could recommend a seepage pit in the front lawn, and that would be in exchange for the granting the variance for the front-facing garage and the wider driveway and the wider curb cut.
Mr. Vollmer, any comments to that? And naturally understanding that we're looking to weigh, positives and negatives here, and stormwater management is a particular area of sensitivity here in the city of Summit. So, do you have anything you'd like to add to this?
I certainly understand that. I would throw this out there. Would we, in lieu of, obviously the seepage pit is a construction expense. Would you entertain the idea of, the leaders coming down to a splash pad traditionally, like every other corner of a house? Now that we have some lawn area there, the rainwater down the spout could disperse naturally across the ground. The one that's kind of next to the porch, perhaps that could be relocated in a similar fashion. A splash pad there might get trapped, but we could look into that. But if you're really would like to see the seepage pit, we can certainly do that. I know in the past I've done a seepage pit. I would ask if we would be allowed to do a soil log for the purpose of the design, make some assumptions about the soil, and then confirm that during construction. Reason being, it alleviates the need to have an excavator come out there twice.
So you're saying that do that soil test first to find out whether or not the soils are going to perk before they go to the expense of installing the dry well. Is that correct?
No, actually, I would make an assumption about the soil, and then when they come to install the pit, we'll do a perk test then. And if it deviates from my assumptions, we can make adjustments with the stone that the volume of stone. Like I said, it alleviates the need for the excavator to come out there twice, and as well as the engineer. I'm just looking to save the client some money.
Right, that's a good recommendation. That what you just said, don't come out twice. They can do it all at once and then confirm that the soils are going to perk and that the drywall is viable. So I have no objection to that.
Okay, so Herschel, I'll just need your help figuring out how to include that as a condition, and maybe Mr. Dower, you can help us simplify that request into something a little more punchy.
Yeah. I mean, I'd put in something that says applicant to install drywall and front lawn to accommodate stormwater runoff in accordance with the, in communication with the city's planner in accordance with his recommendations.
Right,
Mr. Dower?
and results of the soil testing shall be submitted to the board or the city to the city for review.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We're adding the engineer's report as agreeing to the engineer's report in its entirety as a condition. So how much more do we need than that, which basically states the drywall will be put in?
If we're comfortable with the language of the engineer's report, Mr. Dower, again, I kind of revert back to you. If there's something new or different that was just agreed to, deviates from the engineer's letter, then
I think what's in there is fine. It's just that the applicant is going to have to direct the stormwater runoff from the downspouts as much as possible to the seepage bed. But you want to eliminate the pipe going out to the street, and then if they can capture anything else from the house, from the addition, then that would be a positive step as well.
okay. So you're saying, just to be clear, that the language included in the engineer's report, to Joe's point, when we asked that the engineer's report, acceptance of the engineer's report be included as a condition of this application, is sufficient to control for the steps being proposed by the applicant's engineer?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Chris. Any other questions for the applicant's engineer?
I'm not quite sure who this question goes to. Either one of them might want to answer it. How much of this project can be accomplished if the garage does not change direction?
Kristen, you better take that one.
I think the whole point of extending the back of the garage would just force us to make the pavement in the backyard that much larger. It would just essentially have to push everything back, because you literally, when you pull into the back of the house, I guess you have to do like a K-turn, which takes a lot of pavement, especially with a Suburban. So I think you would end up, pushing. It would just create a larger impervious surface, I would think. I'm trying to think what else that will. And on top of just being very tight quarters in terms of every time we pull in our driveway's so tight, I had to take up the cobblestones when you're facing the house on the left-hand side of the driveway, just because we were ruining our rims and tires. And so it just goes to show you how tight that space is. We literally ruined our tires and 2 rims just trying to get through that tight space without trying to take off our mirrors. So I think it would really put a damper, I think, on the whole construction process, or in terms of what we were, hoping to do. And I'll be the first one to admit, in terms of aesthetics, I love, I do not prefer the garage in the front of the home. I love, the design of all of the homes having the garage in the back. But at the end of the day, sometimes functionality trumps, aesthetics in a way. And I really feel like and you've been to our property, you've seen how tight that driveway is. I really believe what we're trying to do makes the most sense.
I guess what I'm thinking about is when I drive down that street, it looks so pretty, and then I go back to your backyard and I see 2 open garage doors and no cars in the garage, lots of sports equipment and hunting and stuff, hunting and fishing gear. So I'm just wondering, am I going to drive down that street and be viewing your open garage doors,
No,
playing all that equipment instead of the pretty ambiance that I see of all your neighbors?
I agree, and I think we would do our best to keep those closed at all times, because I don't think anyone wants anyone looking in their garage, just because there tends to be a lot of buildup and storage and junk. And, you know, hopefully with this larger garage, we can alleviate some of that. And I think there is one home down the street on Oakley, I think it's a bi-level, that also has the garage in the front, closer to Wilson. I think a few homes in from the entrance to Wilson. But I think, and even theirs, I think they do a good job of keeping those doors closed. But there is another home on our street that has it.
But I guess what you're telling me is that this project would be a non-starter without it.
I think so, given our vehicles and given what we're trying to do in terms of add more lawn space to our garage. I think it would really just take away, everything that we're trying to do.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Any other questions from members of the board? Tom, you've been conspicuously silent today.
Yeah, I've been just trying to sort something out here. I want to make sure I understand the variances that are being asked for here. I see a variance for the left side yard setback, but there's really no change from current because of the garage addition. I see a variance for the driveway, obviously a drop curb in the post apron. But is there any variance needed for moving the garage? I don't see a variance specifically for that.
Chris, you have anything to add for that? Chris, Nicola.
Going up the DRO now, it looks like.
That's what I've been trying to do, is try and look it up and I couldn't find it.
It says attached garages shall have, let me see, entrances from other than the front, side, or rear, except that lots of a width less than 90 feet shall be permitted to have front-facing garages, limited to the maximum of 24 feet in width to accommodate parking for maximum of 2 vehicles.
So is this a 90-foot property?
I think ours is 78, I think.
75, yeah.
75.
Because Krista did not list a variance for a front-facing garage.
Krista did not call it out in her report as well, yes.
Okay, so assuming that Krista's interpretation of the DRO is that this application doesn't require a variance, the question of the front-facing garage isn't specifically called out, right, as one of the 4 variances. We're looking to approve with regard to the left side yard setback, building coverage, FAR, and then the drop curb and apron width. There's no explicit request for a variance for the front-facing garage. Okay, anything further, Chris, you want to add to that, or I think we're just going to take Krista's position and proceed?
Here, Chris Dorr.
No, you, Chris Nicola, come on.
No, I think you
Three
stated,
Chris's.
Based off of what I'm reading in the ordinance here, and they're testifying that their lot's less than 90, so.
Okay. All right, excellent. And sorry there, Mr. Vollmer, before we let you go, any other questions for the engineer? We got a little sidetracked there with the applicants. All right, hearing no further questions from either our board professional or the members of the board, we'll move to offer you the opportunity to provide some kind of closing statement. There is no public in attendance tonight, so there's no public commentary. But Mr. and Mrs. Lind, if you'd like to provide just a synopsis of the application, any further information you'd like us to be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really covered it. Just want to thank everyone, for listening to our story. And, and I think just going back, we really thought about all of these changes. We didn't move in and want to do these things overnight. I think having the ability to live here for a handful of years, we tried to figure out what would work best for our family, but I think also looking forward, future families. You know, maybe the SUV craze goes out of style one day. But I think until then, I think what we're trying to do, I think for a family that has 2 Suburbans, I do believe it's the best option. And then also just, I think creating a larger green space, I think is important as well. So I would close it with that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So just to clarify the conditions before we enter into deliberations. So after a lot of back and forth there, I have acceptance of the engineer's letter, which notably covers the stormwater management question that we raised. Explicit call out for replacement of the 2 trees, though we do note that the engineer observed that plans already call for the replacement of those trees. And those would be replaced upon the approval of Mr. Linson, the city forester. And then Mr. Lardieri had also called out for an update to surveying to show the right side of the house. And that would be those would be the 3 conditions that I've noted as part of the deliberations. Okay, so with that, I'll entertain a member of the board, as I've been talking too much, to kick us off with some deliberations.
Well, if you hadn't brought up the zoning ordinance and the fact that the neighborhood to me says back garages, and I was prepared to vote against this application because I believe that it should have a rear-facing garage and should be maintained. But if no variance is required, then we have to look at it a little bit differently, and the changes that they're asking for make sense under that zoning. I just hope that we aren't opening up something that's going to affect the whole neighborhood.
Okay. Any other members of the board like to comment beyond Mr. Steiner's?
I will just, Michael Lardieri. I mean, for me, my decision is razor thin. There's positives and negatives. I'm seeing a razor thin edge to the positives, but Mr. Steiner has hit on a couple of things that have struck me. Potential of bifurcating the garage from the improvements. I was thinking of that until Mr. Steiner jumped in. And going up and down the block, there's one home up the street. It is a split level house, I believe, in the garage with the front facing garage. And personally, I wouldn't vote yes or no, whether the garage doors would be open or closed. But Mr. Steiner makes a good point. You know, we can't control that, but that is a legitimate concern. Thinking about the decreasing, and now will everyone with a Suburban look at the Lynn family and go, I want a front facing garage. Mr. Steiner hit on that as well. Rest assured, that's coming. With that being said, the decreasing in impervious coverage, the Lynn family has made a very compelling case. I do sympathize with that driveway, whether it's a Suburban or a Prius for that matter. Very difficult. So, and they're willing to comply with the stormwater management, et cetera, et cetera. The plans look really that they're going to be appealing to the neighborhood. So I'm going to vote yes on this case.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the application too. I mean, I think the fact that they're reducing the lot coverage is a positive. It kind of offsets the increase in building coverage. I think it's a positive improvement. In the front-facing garage, obviously, if it were prohibited, it would need a variance, but it doesn't need a variance, so they can't really judge it based on that. As Joe noted, so I'm inclined to favor it.
Okay. Any further questions or other comments from the board? Liz, I saw you on mute. Want to say something?
No, I'm in favor of it. It seems like a modest addition, and it gives the kids more of a backyard. And I saw that driveway, and I don't think I can go do a K-turn through it. So I do sympathize with you.
Okay. With that, and I'll concur with the comments that were provided here. The decrease in impervious coverage stands out to me as a clear net benefit. as well as the concession for improvements on stormwater management controls. And then I think also with regard to the driveway, there's a benefit for public safety here, where hopefully it'll allow the Lynns and future homeowners of 41 Oakland to be able to more safely ingress and egress that property. So I could certainly I'll support the application as well. And with that, I'll seek a motion to approve or.
I motion to approve as long as the Lynns keep the garage doors shut.
Okay.
I'm coming down the block too.
All right. Someone second Mr. Lardieri's motion.
I will second that motion. I'm not sure the requirement to keep it closed is legal, but I'll second the motion anyway.
Michael, they're going to give you their remote control, so when you drive by, you can close it.
All right. Chris, will you call the roll?
Certainly. Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes, I approve.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Laderi. Mr. Laderi,
Yes.
Mr. Steiner,
Yes.
Ms. Schwartzstein,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Chairman Spur.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much, Linz. That was great. Enjoy your garage and everything else. All right. With that, now we can move to resolutions for memorialization. Chris, I believe there's only one this evening.
Yeah, we have one Sweetbriar Road, application ZB-20-2007. Eligible voting members are Mr. Laderi, Mr. Steiner, Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Malay, and Mr. Yuko. Make a motion.
So move.
Second, Steiner.
Mr. Laderi? Mr. Laderi?
Oh. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Steiner,
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes,
Mr. Malay,
Hey, girl.
Yes.
and Mr. Yuko.
Yes.
All right. And I believe also we have minutes for approval, Chris.
Yes, would somebody like to move approval of the minutes?
so moved.
Second, Michael.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right.
All right. With that, we are adjourned. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much.
Night.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Take care.
I love that. I love the gavel.